Warning, you are about to listen to the Bugle Weekly podcast. Side effects could include being better informed, non-compliance, an increase in or starting smoking, feeling good about yourself, seeing through PodConf deception, and more. Please consult your most trusted credentialed superior if you experience any of these symptoms. If you find the show helpful and valuable, please consider boosting the show on Fountain. Listener discretion is advised.
In a bustling newsroom, smoking Marlboro Reds, two men work the beat, just as brave as can be. Ron Palmer has a heart of gold, pen sharp as a knife. Dick Greaser investigating pot and bringing shadows to light. Every week on the Bugle, their voices ring so true. They're the heartbeat of the nation, bringing the news to you. Rod and Dick keep on rolling through the thick and the thin, with a fire that keeps burning that won't let the darkness win. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bringing light to the darkness, making wrong things right. They chase down a story, no matter how far, from the dusty back roads to the smoky bar. Rod has the facts, Dick has the flair. Together they are a force, a fearless pair. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bringing light to the darkness, making wrong things right. When the world needed heroes, they stepped up to the line. In the name of justice, they never did resign. With courage in their hearts and the truth on their side, Rod and Dick are the voices that couldn't be denied. From the courthouse steps to the county fair, they break a big story, and they'll always be there. With a tip of a hat and a nod of respect, Ron Palmer and Dick Greaser, they never neglect. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bring light to the darkness, making wrong things right. Now the world remembers those two brave souls who bring justice and truth through their mighty roads. Rod and Dick at the Bugle, their legacy built, and every story told, and every right from wrong. Every week on the Bugle, their voices ring so true. They're the heartbeat of the nation, bringing the news to you.
In a metaverse as harsh and cruel as reality, on a world similar to our own, so familiar that it almost feels like home, exists a game, hard forked from the cosmic digital soup of Rust servers, nearly as old as Bitcoin itself, where no tutorial is exactly the same. A game called Orange Mart. In Orange Mart, as in life, you begin totally nude, and your primary objective is simple: survive. But unlike the cloud world you spawned into in real life, Orange Mart enables you to blaze your own trail, the only way Bitcoiners know how: through proof of work. Play your way through a world built on game theory, where you must always transact adversarially. Use first principles thinking to earn Bitcoin and battle the temptations of PodConf. Engage in peer-to-peer commerce and build a digital community thermodynamically sound and as compliant or as non-compliant as you are. Do you have what it takes to survive? Welcome to the state of nature. Welcome to Orange.
Last week on Bugle Weekly, Rod and Richard celebrate Compliance Pride Month, a month of observation and recognition for all the hard-working HR and legal departments at Bitcoin companies working hard to comply with the government. They discuss Donald Trump's non-compliance conviction in New York City, as well as how government non-compliance is the direct result of Dennis Porter and Bitcoin Policy Institute lobbying politicians, as well as how politicians continue their non-compliance and attack Bitcoin in Congress. Speaking of Dennis Porter, Rod and Richard explore price discovery regarding the value of a video of Dennis Porter orange pilling AOC in front of her fiancé. Lastly, Rod and Richard discuss quarantining non-compliant politicians in Washington, D.C., as well as testing politicians for genetic predisposition to non-compliance. Well, that wraps up last week. We hope you enjoyed this week.
You are listening to the Bugle Weekly, the most thermodynamically sound name in news. Here are your hosts, Rod Palmer and Dick Greaser.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Bugle. How you doing, Rod?
Doing really good, Richard. And I just wanted to start by saying I'd be remiss to not recognize the monumentous occasion this week that happened to our neighbor to the south in Mexico, the first female president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. Very Mexican name. Sounds like she's going to be a great leader. I just want to congratulate the Mexican voters for this monumental achievement that they've voted for. And the other thing that was in the news, I don't know if you saw this, but 37, the headline came out, 37 politicians running for office in Mexico this cycle had been assassinated. And then the day the article came out, another mayoral candidate got assassinated. Did you see this?
I did. I didn't read into it very deeply, but I did see the headlines.
And it's crazy. And I was in the Real Pleb Telegram group chat. Some of the plebs on there were responding. They posted a link to it, and they were saying, this is so based. And I had to remind some of the plebs, I was like, it sounds based. The politicians are afraid of the voters. They're afraid of the citizens. And maybe this is a little too extreme. And one of the podcast media outlets, I can't remember which one it was, but they had a tweet and they blamed the Bugle for the 38th assassination. They said that this was Bitcoiners in Mexico taking civil non-compliance month too far. And first of all, we had nothing to do with that assassination. We did not sanction it. We don't know anybody who was behind it. So I wanted to dispel that FUD right away. But back to the plebs, I reminded them that you have to be careful what you wish for, because there's a lot of non-compliance in Mexico, but as a result, during COVID, Mexicans did not have access to lockdowns. They did not have access to vaccine mandates. And that is a trade-off you have to make if you're a little too non-compliant with the government.
Yeah. So has there been more politicians that have died than Boeing whistleblowers? Like, is there a race going on between the U.S. and Mexico in assassinations right now?
Yeah, it seems like they're having their own tournament. We've got our Compliance Pride Month tournament going on social media, and we can talk about that later. But there has been a similar tournament between Boeing and the Mexican cartels who can kill the most political enemies. But the Mexican cartels are way ahead in that matter. I think it's like 40-3 at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a pretty interesting story. So I don't know much about the president, other than that she's female. By her name, I have some questions because it doesn't sound like a Mexican name to me. You said it sounded very Mexican. What did you say her name was?
Claudia Sheinbaum.
Sheinbaum. Huh.
People have noticed that's a different name. There's a lot of noticing going on, but by all accounts, she's born and raised in Mexico and has been a political leader. She was the director of environmental policy under the president in like 2006 is what I read. So she's risen above the ranks. She's very leftist, obviously. But, you know, we'll see what her rule looks like. I mean, it's just, I think we're sad in the moment celebrating her being the first female, but maybe we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves and we don't know her politics very well yet.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I've been surprised that Bitcoin Magazine hasn't tweeted about her saying that she said something about Bitcoin or that David Bailey's talking to her or anything like that. I mean, it's been very quiet election as far as
right.
Their involvement.
Samson Mao, I wonder if Samson Mao has any insight on this. So Samson, if you're listening to this, please let us know what you know about President Sheinbaum. But you did mention something important. You mentioned the disparity between the assassinations of political candidates in Mexico versus whistleblowers. And I think that part of Mexico's lead in this tournament comes down to the efficiency of their assassination markets, where I don't think we have any on-chain assassination markets in the United States anymore. But down in Mexico, they're trading assassination tokens on Solana, and people who pull off these political assassinations are getting paid in meme coins on Solana, which I think is probably contributing to the rise in these events. It is probably related to this monetary incentive that people have to pull these off.
So, I mean, that's a really interesting thing to think about, is the CIA could really use these types of non-compliant assassination markets in the global south to try and create coups and influence elections.
Right. I mean, this could extend into stable coins that they could use Tether to pay assassins. It could become the assassin's money. But there has been discussion between builders on different chains, notably Ethereum, as well as even Bitcoin, where people have been wanting to bring these assassination markets back to Bitcoin, the Bitcoin maximalists do. And unfortunately, it's not, well, depending on who you talk to, unfortunately. Some people think fortunately. But depending on who you talk to, this is because fees are too high on chain. And it may not be a coincidence that they are so high. It may be that there's CIA influence kind of working against open source developers, working against on-chain assassination markets that are preventing this from coming to Bitcoin, which is very disappointing to the maximalists.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Saylor has been talking about how we need to slow down on the development side, how we need to stop funding. You know, I've been talking about how we should have stopped funding core devs a long time ago, or at least not as much.
Right.
And so he seems to be like, I don't know where he'd rather have those funds directed, but it seems like he wants to keep Bitcoin compliant for the time being, for it to get a foothold, and then we can not comply. That seems to be a strategy. But yeah, I mean, these assassination markets are really, really interesting. So I think the important thing is just knowing the level of the non-compliance the CIA has. Like when you're gambling and drug cartels and, you know, which are sometimes affiliated with intelligence agencies, when there's overlap there, you know, you're really placing a lot of trust into who the writers of the smart contract are deciding that contract. And then, you know, it's a situation where the House, you know, oftentimes wins because they can, you know, really influence the terms of the contract and readjust them in the middle and rug pull the user. So I would caution individuals to be very careful engaging in activities like that.
And these cartels, they're selling a lot of fentanyl and other drugs to the United States, and that requires, as you know, as we all know, requires money laundering. If there's money laundering involved, you can bet your bottom dollar, your bottom peso, that the CIA and the Mexican version of the CIA, whatever those guys are, they're involved.
Yep. It's pretty scary times down there. I mean, it's kind of scary times here as well. I mean, do you have anything else on this Mexico situation? I mean, it's pretty wild that, you know, 40 or so politicians have been assassinated via these assassination markets. People are gambling on politicians' lives. It's not really being covered a whole lot.
No, it's not. You think that this would be you think this would be all over the news, especially with everybody coming across the border. Like, we don't know how many meme coin smart contract creators are entering the country, and they are going to be more incentivized when they get to the United States to try to bring this stuff to Bitcoin, to try to bring this stuff to Ethereum. And I think that a lot of the compliance industry is going to be having their hands full trying to deal with it. I think down in Mexico, you've got this weird situation where you've got the cartels and the government, and there's this tug of war for who has controls, and neither side is compliant. So people are not sure which side to comply with. And it really causes a lot of confusion and a lot of tragedy for people who kind of get caught in the crossfire of non-compliance down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to do when people are just kind of...
The people saying that's why there's so many immigrants trying to come to the United States. The rules of compliance are much more clear here in the United States. However, that situation is getting murkier by the day. And some of them are staying back. Some of them are saying, I'm staying in El Salvador. This is much more compliant here. They've gotten rid of non-compliance. I feel safe here. I'm coming back from the United States. I'm not going to stay here anymore.
How many of the people coming across the border do you think just had big winnings on these assassination markets, and they're trying to use their winnings to come across the border and provide a better life for themselves?
Yeah, I think that's probably the majority of them. I think they've won, millions of pesos worth of cash and meme coins, and they're coming here to start a new life. They're coming here to start a new farming career, new agricultural career. And it's unfortunately some of them get bused or shipped up to New York City or Chicago, and it's cold and there's no farming jobs, and they're wondering, like, how do I convert my meme coin winnings to cash? And that's what's making them want to come and bring the stuff on Bitcoin, because they have Bitcoin ATMs that they can cash out on. But the fees are just so high that it eats up their peso savings.
Yeah. Man, that's just such a sad situation. I really feel for, people in tough situations like that. And, I just wish that Mexico could have the stability that they needed so that people, felt like there was a future there.
Yeah, I mean, some people are calling for a new NAFTA, a North American Free Token Agreement, where these meme token beneficiaries can exchange their winnings freely without being taxed, without being tariffed in any country in North America. But maybe Donald Trump will take that up, and he'll talk about, he's been very anti-NAFTA in the past, but I think maybe this new NAFTA might cause him to flip-flop on free trade and free tokens.
Yeah. Well, hopefully these assassination markets, turn to something good, because, the whole theory on them that Jim Bell came up with is that it would take care of the non-compliant actors first. But in this scenario, it seems like it's kind of reversed, where the non-compliant actors are benefiting from them.
Yeah, it's really comes down to game theory, and more often than not, the non-compliant end up being the cantillionaires, and we have to reverse that. That's not a very thermodynamically sound society.
Yeah, well, it's probably because the markets are being built on Solana, which is a non-thermodynamic.
Right. Those are the consequences. Incentives matter.
They do. Well, I think probably a few years from now, when the rest of the world has figured out that Bitcoin has won, we could probably see Vegas running assassination markets of some sort. I think, once the government sees that something like that could be taxed, they're probably going to approve it.
Right. And you think about FanDuel, think about Citizen Duel, where if you want to challenge a politician to a duel, you can put out a bet on the assassination markets, and they have to outraise you. They have to grow more engagement than you, or else, the consequences could be dire.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to change the world as we see it once these become more developed and widespread.
civil defense, and civil attacks will really be on the rise if this kind of market gets a foothold in the United States.
Definitely. Well, on to the next topic. So we talked we introduced Compliance Pride Month last week on the show. And that has continued. So to celebrate Compliance Pride Month, the Bugle has conducted a tournament of 64 different Bitcoin companies competing to show who has the most compliance pride.
It is bad. In an electric tournament, we had our first tournament back in March, the influencer tournament, which was obviously won by Yellow. But this one is about compliance and recognizing the hard work that HR and legal departments and these Bitcoin companies are doing just to remain in compliance with politicians and the government. And honestly, there wasn't a lot of awareness for Compliance Pride Month until we reported about it. But even considering the lack of awareness, the participation, the pride, and the enthusiasm is really surprised me. It's been really encouraging to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's that has happened because so many people in the Bitcoin industry have just gotten no fanfare. Like, nobody ever applauds the compliance department, but they're the first people you interact with when you use a lot of these products offered by the companies involved in the tournament.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate. Like, all these companies could not function without HR departments managing all the behaviors within the company. Like, if you do not sign your employee agreement and employee handbook on a yearly basis, then, how are you going to be complying with the if you look at the Final Four, it's a little bit surprising, right? So the Final Four, we're down to the Final Four. Voting is taking place right now. So by the time you hear this, we'll be at the championship round. But the Final Four now is between Fold, Vote Out, and they're going against, is it Coinbase? Right? Yeah.
And then on the other side, you've got the What Bitcoin Did podcast versus, I think it's Marathon, the miners. And people have been asking, why is a podcast in this compliance tournament? It's like, that's not really a Bitcoin company. But what people don't realize is that What Bitcoin Did is the biggest podcast in the world, not just Bitcoin, for anything. And what is the essence of that company? Or what is the essence of that enterprise? It is people telling their stories, getting their stories out there so that it is broadcast to the world so everybody can have that information. And what other people don't realize is your first interaction with a Bitcoin company is you are telling them your story. Their compliance departments are learning about you, the customer. They're getting to know you. You're telling them your Bitcoin story and like everything about you. And that is now going to all these servers around the world and is permanently there. People will always have your story and know, your interaction with that company and how much Bitcoin you bought. So What Bitcoin Did kind of leads the way. It sets the example for all these other companies to how do we know more about our customers? How do we let them tell their story?
I mean, when I am needing a product or service to use in the Bitcoin space, the first thing I do is I listen to Peter's podcast to kind of get a catalog of all the compliant companies of the moment.
Right, exactly.
And it's kind of frustrating, how they rotate around sometimes, because sometimes they'll go through, like, the process of, KYCing with, like, you remember when Kraken used to be a sponsor of Peter?
Right.
And then, when it changed over to Gemini, I had to use Gemini, or I had to KYC again, and then when it changed over to Swan, I had to KYC again. And so, there's a lot of, I'm still trying to figure out what to do. Like, how do I engage with Iron Energy as an individual? I tried to, like, email their CFO, like, my KYC information, but he hasn't responded.
First of all, let me just say about Iron, the legends at Iron Energy, freaking massive legends.
Yeah, I mean, what do? They do something with AI and mining and energy.
Yeah, it is so complex. The so much proof of work involved that it's just, that's why they're legends. I mean, who else can do that?
Yeah. I mean, they don't seem to be really getting any benefit from sponsoring the podcast other than just like showing that they're legends, because like,
But one of the benefits they're getting is now the people who like to bet on Bitcoin mining stocks are aware that they can go on their, Schwab or their Robinhood, and they can buy options, and they can take leverage and buy their stock. And then as AI and Bitcoin go up in value, well, obviously iRing would go up as well, because it has both of those things involved. So they can just massively profit due to these option strategies, and they wouldn't be aware of it. It is even possible if it wasn't for their sponsorship.
Well, this is like a criticism I have of Peter, is he doesn't have a full stack of sponsors. Because like so he's shilling a company's stock, but he's not necessarily shilling the stock, because that'd probably be illegal. He's just educating people about the company to bring, brand name awareness around it.
Right. He's letting you know that they're legends.
Yeah.
You can do that information what you want, but I'm betting on legends. I'll tell you that.
But which company, Peter, do I use to buy the stock in the legends? Which broker do I KYC with? Is it Robinhood? Is it Schwab? Is it Fidelity? Fidelity would probably sponsor you.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, no, Peter needs to work on his full stack.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
I'm personally incredibly upset. Maybe this is why I'm going along this line of questioning. I'm pretty salty that what Bitcoin did beat Anchor Watch. I thought that was just like an unreasonable upset, and I was not emotionally prepared to watch that happen.
I think Anchor Watch needs to do a better job of knowing their customer. I think if they knew their customer as well as Peter did, they would have had the votes. I think that they would have been able to reach out to those customers and let them know how important this tournament is, and they would have had the votes. So maybe it's just underdog. I think what Bitcoin has been around a little bit longer than Anchor Watch, and so they're definitely one of those companies that are on the rise that are worth watching. But they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but I mean, they have like the Anchor Watch. I forgot what that girl was that everybody's freaking out about, the NCAA women's basketball. I'm talking about that girl from Iowa. Caitlin Clark. Yeah, so what's her name? Becca
Emily.
Yeah, Becca Emily. She's like the Caitlin Clark of Anchor Watch. And right. I guess it's only appropriate because Iowa lost in the championship towards that against that other sports ball team.
Right. So it's probably more of a, what's the quote from Back to the Future? It's like, you guys don't get it, but your kids will love it. The next generation, class of 2024, they'll probably appreciate Anchor Watch and Becca a lot more than we do today. I think we take too much for granted right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, this could be the moment, where they did well. I mean, getting to the Elite Eight is no small feat. So good job to Anchor Watch and the team over there, and Becca. Keep it up. Your compliance is noticed.
It's a Bitcoin standard of compliance.
Yeah. Nobody complies harder. But yeah, Marathon is going to be. They're currently down to what Bitcoin did in the current polls. We're recording Sunday afternoon, evening. Fold is currently leading Coinbase, which isn't that surprising because Coinbase didn't really engage with the contest at all.
And they've been really leading the charge from the Bitcoin community in terms of civil non-compliance. They've been suing the SEC. They've been fighting them in court. So right now, despite all the groundwork they've laid for compliance for the past 10 years, decade plus. They've been leading the non-compliance strike against the government. So I think that at this point in time, even though the size and the backing and the funding, the disparity is enormous, Fold is just outclassing them with the fundamentals. And when it comes to tournament time, fundamentals do matter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point. I just would have figured, the reason why Coinbase hasn't really shown up to the tournament is because they feel like their level of compliance is significantly higher than their competitor Fold. They must have.
Right. I think part of it as well is they may not be really aware of how big of a deal this tournament is due to their inability to parse the signal from the noise. They've got so much civil attacks going on in their mentions on social media that I don't know if the signal, which would be notifications that they've been tagged by the Bugle, or even making it to the proper credentialed authorities to let them know that they should interact.
Yeah, and it might be, I think there might be some internal company rules to only engage with crypto-related media platforms that have the word coin in it. So they're probably exclusively working with Cointelegraph and CoinDesk.
Right, and Chain as well. Chainalysis.
Is Chainalysis a media company?
They've got a blog. So they do have a blog, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, this brings I'm getting out of order of the agenda, but this gets into the question of what is a Bitcoin company, and
can you just identify as a Bitcoin company? Is that how it works? Is it biology?
I mean, that's something that I really struggled with. So I brought up the question before doing this tournament because I was having trouble figuring out who to include on the list. And I think, at the end of the day, my opinion on what a Bitcoin company is just whatever company identifies with it.
Okay, yeah.
An example of this is Ben Justman was really upset that Pony Lane didn't have an opportunity to compete in the tournament.
No, it's tough. I mean, he identifies his wine company as a Bitcoin company, but, is it more about the wine or is it more about the sets? I think that he deserves to be included. Again, a very nascent, very new company. I'm sure by this time next year, he could be included. There's going to be a lot of companies, I think, especially in the mining bracket, that are just not going to be around in 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it kind of comes down. So if the way that a Bitcoin company becomes a Bitcoin company, if it's dependent on the company self-identifying as one, then it really comes down to the ownership structure of the companies, and there needs to be a consensus amongst the shareholders to determine whether they're a Bitcoin company, a crypto company, or something else entirely.
And some people would take exception with the idea you can just identify as one of these companies, but I disagree with that, because if you're going to, I guess it's something to think about. Are you going to gain more benefit from identifying as a Bitcoin company versus the amount of extra compliance that's going to be required of you once you identify? You have to look at the incentives and see why is this company identifying as Bitcoin when it comes with all this extra compliance? Well, everybody's different. Everybody's got a different reason why.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the problems that has happened, when I look at this list, is I highly doubt that the shareholders have come to a consensus around whether the company is a Bitcoin company or not. And I think the marketing teams are kind of running with the term to gain favor.
Those compliance departments are going to be pretty upset with them when they find out what the consequences are.
Well, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to have a vibrant and assertive HR department. You want those people to have teeth to be able to make sure that, people are following the right steps. So, for startups that are out there, wow, did you realize we didn't even include the Bitcoin company on this tournament?
Stupid. How could we have missed that?
Wow.
It was right in front of us. But I also make a really good point. I think for Penny Lanes to be included next year, they're going to need one thing that they don't have today, which is an HR department. And if you include an HR department at Penny Lanes, you will be eligible for the draft. Otherwise, how can we trust that your compliance is meeting the standard?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you don't even hire a single compliance influencer at your company, then it's kind of difficult to justify putting you on the list. But I'm sure there's some examples of this. Like, we know that Justifer over at Amboss is repping compliance harder than everybody else, and that's why Amboss is on there.
Surprised to see them go down so early.
I was surprised too, and to be defeated by Voltage, I really wonder what the voters were thinking. It's going to be important to do some good quality exit polls during this tournament.
Yeah, it could be because it's not a catch-22. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but if you spend too much time on compliance and not enough time on marketing, you might not do really well in these tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's like kind of a trifecta so there's three things that are really important to running a successful company. There's compliance, there's marketing, and then there's building. And all three of those three things need to have the right amount of energy dedicated to each one for there to be proper balance. And if there isn't, things will get super out of whack. And I think that's one of the challenges is just, running an organization is to find the correct give or take to give in between these three very important things. And, sometimes like during compliance month, it seems like it's really a good time to dial back on building and just focus on marketing and complying.
Right. And this emphasizes the need for a business bachelor's degree if you're going to be an entrepreneur. I mean, anybody technically can start a company. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're not going to take those engineering and physics classes to learn about thermodynamics. It's going to be very difficult for your company to be thermodynamically sound if you don't even understand what that word means.
Yeah. 100%. Well, to go on, yeah, I mean, I'll finish on what you just said and respond to it. If you don't know what the word thermodynamics means, then you probably haven't listened to enough Michael Saylor yet. So that's the I don't know. It's kind of a test that you can run on people.
Right.
So when you're at a Bitcoin event, you go to a meetup and you're trying to gauge, how knowledgeable somebody is on the topic, don't ask if people, have accounts on bitcointalk.org or, when they got into Bitcoin, ask them to define thermodynamics. And if they explain things like Michael Saylor does, then that they put in the work in.
Exactly. And it's go back to sports again. If somebody can't do a layup, you can't trust them to shoot 3-pointers. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Hey, fellow plebs. I want to tell you about the Comply clothing line. The conference season is really heating up this summer, and you need cool swag to wear. The Bugle has you covered. We are partnering with Orange Label to bring you the best in quality t-shirts, hats, and women's swimsuits. By purchasing our clothing, you can help redefine the conversation around compliance while also supporting real journalism. You have the opportunity to be the pleb that rocks the coolest merch, which will definitely turn heads. Going to the conference looking to find a trad wife? Boost your chances of finding her by heading over to the website orangelabel.co or click the link in the episode show notes to check out the Comply clothing line today.
Okay, next topic. Compliance tournament has been fun, but yeah. So this is some really empowering news. So this is a PSA to all the Bitcoin podcasters out there. We have won. Bitcoin has won, and history is written by the victors. because we are the victors, that means that we are currently the ones writing history. And so the Bitcoin podcasters, all the podcasts we're doing right now are going to be determining the curriculum in schools for decades to come.
Right. And it's very easy to, lose sight of the fact that it seems like Bitcoin hasn't already won. Everybody's living in the past. They're referring to history books. They're referring to headlines that were written in the past. So it seems like, depending on, where you get your news, if you don't get your news from the Bugle, for example, it may seem like Bitcoin hasn't already won. But it's up to us. It's up to the podcasters. It's up to the news, the journalists, the credentialed journalists to write the news, to blog the news, to tweet the news. Because when people look back, whether it's an hour from now, a day from now, a week from now, or 10 years from now, they're going to go back and they're going to find all the Bitcoin books, all the podcasts, all the tweets, and they're going to use that to determine what happened, who won, which side won which battle. And if all of that information, and there's just terabytes and terabytes of data that is getting put out there every day, if it's all information saying and reporting the fact that Bitcoin has already won, that's how people in the future will know what is happening. That's how they will gauge and find their orientation, how they navigate reality, by looking at the past. And we're the ones writing the past. And this is why you need journalists and Bitcoin authors writing books and making podcasts to inform the future.
One of the really interesting things I was just thinking about as you were talking is just how much warfare has changed over the years. And, when we look at Bitcoin going from zero to the point that it's at right now, there's been a lot of hard-fought battles. When you think about the Revolutionary War, there's going to be all these, different battles, like, the Battle of Saratoga, that are referenced in history books, and they're going to be compared against Bitcoin sign guy flashing the buy Bitcoin sign behind Janet Yellen. Like, that was our Battle of Saratoga, or that was our Battle of Bunker Hill.
Wars in the past used to be fought with bullets and bombs in armies, but now wars fought with information. And that is why, and I've been very consistent about this, we just celebrated D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day a few days ago, and the President of the United States, he pooped his pants on stage in France to celebrate. But the heroes that stormed the beaches of Normandy, that's who we are today. We're the modern version of those GI heroes. We're the ones fighting the information war, right? The podcasters and the journalists. Like, that's why I believe, and I've said this multiple times, that there should be like veterans discounts. We should be qualified for veterans benefits, veterans healthcare, because we are the veterans of the modern war age.
Yeah, so when you think of the fiat people that are still fighting the war, so there's all these stories of Japanese soldiers that fought for decades after the war already ended because they didn't have the information about, the emperor surrendering.
Too many credentialed journalists were killed in war for them to get the news in time.
Yeah. Well, they also didn't have the communication, methods that we have today.
Yeah, you could listen to a podcast on the foxhole.
Yeah. So, the way that we can let these stranded fiat maximalists that have not heard the news yet know that they can lay down their arms and surrender and join us, the best way to let them know is, right now as you're listening, to stop what you're doing, go to Twitter, and post some inspirational tweet about Bitcoin having already won. Or you could go to Stacker News or go to Nostr, whichever your preferred spot to hang out is.
Yeah, your preferred pronouns.
And let the people know. Let the people know that Bitcoin has already won, because there's a lot of people that are really resistant to this idea. And one of my fears is that instead of accepting our victory what's going to happen is a lot of Bitcoiners are going to try and exploit this idea of war and create kind of an industrial complex, a war industrial complex in the Bitcoin ecosystem where they keep on fighting invisible enemies in the same way the U.S. military did following World War II.
That's a huge risk. That's a huge risk. I think that part of reporting that Bitcoin has already won kind of helps limit, this is how Bitcoin limits war. And it limits this warfare in this industrial complex. And it's very similar to like religious people. Like obviously Christianity won thousands of years ago. And everybody kind of knows it for the most part. There's some, heretics, but people still go to, their church every Sunday night, every Sunday, every Wednesday. It's repeatable. They read the same verses over and over again. It's like reading the same tweets over and over. It's like people every morning they get on Twitter and they say good morning and they say go fuck yourself, or they say something like, some message should go with the GM. And that's what you have to do. Like, good morning. Bitcoin has already won. Post something inspirational every single day. It's a reminder. It's a ritual that goes into the culture and embeds itself and makes itself very self-inherent, self-evident.
Mm-hmm. And part of the reason I think it's important to know this too is people just know they need to know how to carry themselves right now. They need to act like winners instead of losers. And there's a lot of people that are acting like losers.
Character that is unbecoming of a winner is detrimental to the cause.
Yeah. I mean, it all, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is people just underestimate the power of Dennis Porter.
To their own detriment.
Yeah, to their own extreme detriment. And they're just, too adversarially minded. And right now is you can stop being adversarially minded. You think it's good to be a little bit tone it down from 80 to 90 to 99% down to 30%. So only be 30% adversarially minded, and maybe then we can start getting these updates to the network that Twitter Spaces thinks are necessary.
Exactly. Speaking of adversarial transacting, there's some big news about everybody's favorite military Bitcoiner, Space Boy, Jason Lowery. Can you share with listeners, what the big development is with JP?
Yeah, I mean, he has been engaged with the Trump campaign to secure his position in their cabinet as the Treasury Secretary, which is pretty big.
Yeah, Eddie, listen, I think it's important not to engage in hero worship. And sometimes people on Twitter, Stony Bitson, he's been kind of a simp for Jason Lowery in the past, and people have been kind of critical of him for that. But there's a little bit of egg in his face with this one. It looks like Jason Lowery is for real, and he's going to, and I don't know if this is official policy or it's David Bailey's idea, but one of the things Jason's trying to do is, as Treasury Secretary, is to incorporate regulation of taxes using the IRS to regulate Bitcoin mining fees and transaction fees, because under this new regime, proof of work, the hash rate, that's going to be a part of America's national defense. I mean, of course, because Bitcoin is already won, the most powerful nation is going to be using this as their reserve currency. We're going to need to protect this very fragile protocol. And the miners, especially Marathon, Clean Spark, Riot, and many others based here in the United States, they're going to be taking very, swift control, it looks like, under this policy over the defense military agencies, the branches of the military, like the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force. So it's a very ambitious endeavor. But I mean, this guy wrote an entire book about war in 3 or 4 months. So, I mean, if anybody can do it, he can.
Yeah. I could see this administration doing some pretty interesting stuff. I mean, imagine, I know a lot of people on the Republican side of things, they're all for this idea of privatizing Social Security, which is a topic the Democrats run on quite a bit. But imagine if the U.S. government privatized Social Security and gave it to a company like MicroStrategy. So all these people would be compelled to pay MicroStrategy dollars, which then MicroStrategy converts to Bitcoin and holds for them until they retire and then does payouts.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the blueprint for this is being built by David Bailey and Dylan LeClaire. They're converting all of these publicly traded companies, treasuries, to Bitcoin. And I think that we're going to need a lot more of this type of investment and this strategy if we're going to replace Social Security with shares of MicroStrategy and shares in Metaplanet. But it's maybe the only way we keep the system solvent.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that whatever this plan that Lowry has up his sleeve, because it seems like he has big things planned, they're probably going to use Coinbase as the custodian, and Coinbase is, a good choice. They made it to the Final Four of the Compliance Pride tournament. So they're pretty reputable.
Looking at the business strategy moving forward with Fold, I don't see any reason why we couldn't mail Fold cards to every senior citizen in the United States and pay their Social Security payouts straight to their Fold card. Maybe it wouldn't be Coinbase. Maybe it'll be Fold.
Yeah, so when these seniors go to the casino to spend their Social Security checks on slots, they're going to be getting Bitcoin rewards back for that spend.
That really changes. That puts the power of senior citizens' future in their hands, back in their hands.
100%. Yeah, so, this is a big shift for the United States, having a Treasury Secretary. Lowry's going to be the first guy sitting in that position since Mnuchin, years ago, that has the ability to actually operate a smartphone. I think Yellen's 76 years old. I don't think she can figure out Gmail on her iPhone very well.
To shout out a guy who coined the term, Mr. Greg Foss, this will be the biggest risk chair that anybody has sat on, especially a Bitcoiner, maybe ever.
Well, I'm starting to get really tired. I think need like 20 more cigarettes, and boost me so I could buy some more cigarettes, guys listening. Need some coffee too. So I went on the tangent. We went on the tangent of what the Bitcoin company is. I guess the next segment is to go through the some of the stories we did this week and then get over the Fountain Boost. So maybe we should just condense it to one. Do you want to go through your 10 best excuses to give legal and HR departments for compliance violations?
Yeah, absolutely. I put together an article that came out this week. The title is 10 Best Excuses to Give Legal and HR Departments for Compliance Violations. And it's a pretty short article, so I'll just read through that right now and list the 10. So, it happens to everyone. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you end up violating one of your Bitcoin company's compliance policies. But the grace of God is vast. The grace of your HR department may not be. So coming up with good excuses for compliant violations can be important. So we were here to provide you with those 10. And the first of the 10 is I was trying to be extra productive, so I turned off my VPN. Everybody knows sometimes you turn on your VPN, it slows down your internet speed, it makes it hard to use Google, but having your VPN on is important if it's part of your company's compliance and privacy. It depends on the company you work for, but don't do it if it's supposed to be on. Number 2, I wanted to provide exceptional customer service. Sometimes we take KYC a little too far. We end up looking up privileged customer data to give them top-notch customer service, but you can't do that. However, that name pressure manager. Some people might say, I just want to use my own node to verify, not trust. Your own node is great for you, but you have to know which node your company is using and which version that's on. Make sure it's compliant with all of the consensus rules that your company policy, the frequently asked questions section, say that it does. So you have to make sure you use the right node. But if you need an excuse, people will usually buy them. I was making Bitcoin memes. Did you know the ability to create great bank memes is good for Bitcoin. Use that one. I had to own some Bitcoiners on X. Well, doing some Satoshi's work. Have fun staying poor if you don't agree with this thesis that we've already won. Two-factor authentication slows me down. That's true. If it's not inconvenient, it's not secure, but it does hamper customer service experiences. Number 7, Just Stop Ordinals was denial of servicing attacking the servers. Something you can do about that one. That's a great excuse. Sometimes the protesters, the cyber attackers will make things difficult. Number 8, I was transacting adversarially. Acting within compliance 100% of the time goes against game theory, after all. Number 9, I wanted to make sure the product was thermodynamically sound. Again, your manager probably won't even know what that means, so that'll buy you some time if nothing else. Number 10, Bitcoin is pumping. Everybody can understand that one. When we're experiencing NGU, nobody's focusing at work, so use that one, but it depends on Bitcoin actually be pumping. But yeah, feel free to use any of those excuses above if you're in trouble for a compliance violation, and they may get you out of a write-up or get you out of trouble.
Yeah, I have a comment on number 10. So I think it's important, like if you're in really hot water, to take credit for the reason why Bitcoin is pumping and say, Bitcoin's pumping because I was schooling no coiners or because I was making dank memes.
Yeah, put some of those excuses together into one excuse, and it'll be more powerful.
Yeah. Or maybe another good one is to put on there is that you're liking and amplifying Satoshi Action Fund's tweets.
That one's evergreen for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a good primer to get started with. There's so many get out of jail free cards. This is really going to help people navigating the Bitcoin industry. And I think it's going to be important for us to do more articles like this in the future. Like we need to have like the Bugle's playbook to operate in the Bitcoin industry in these companies successfully, so that all these plebs going and working for these companies for the first time know what to do properly. Absolutely.
Maybe we should put out a manual or an audio, some sort of resource to help these companies. We have leaders who don't have credentials like we do.
This might be a good book to collaborate on. We get input from a bunch of people. Each have little chapters.
It'd be nice to have Guy Swan read the audio version of that.
Yeah. I mean, imagine this could be our version of Thank God for Bitcoin. We could get a bunch of, superpowered journalists and credentialed journalists together to collaborate. We just have to make sure that there's no Judas among us, like Breedlove, because it's kind of unfortunate when you put out a book. Like, imagine if we had somebody that cooperated with us on writing this book, and then turned out to be a complete disaster. And they just, like, instead of using these processes and following the guidebook, they just did everything the opposite way.
Well, it'd be beautiful. It'd be wonderful to have a book as successful as Thank God for Bitcoin. But it would be a tragedy to collaborate with somebody who ended up just besmirching everything we stood for with the social media behavior afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should write a guidebook to like how to properly collaborate with people and like the KYC process and due diligence done on them to ensure those types of events.
Value for dummies.
Ooh, yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, thank you for reading that great article. Let's go through the boost.
All right, number 1, we got John from the Ungovernable Misfits with his boost of 69,420 sats. Really appreciate the support, John. That goes a long way for the cigarettes. He says, when Rod and Dick were in PodConf land, let my people go. Fly so hard, they could not stand. Let my people go. That's a beautiful poem, John. Thank you.
That sounds like that should be a start to a Bugle music team song production.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm going to skip the next one because it was you and you didn't leave a comment. Saver UD. Saverud? Is that how you say it?
That sounds right.
Yeah, SaberRed, boosted for 10,000 sats, said, as a credentialed producer with a university degree in audio production, I can confirm that the Bugle desperately needs a proper productive team. The signal you provide for non-compliant Bitcoiners all over the world are way too important to be distributed by technical problems, or disturbed by technical problems. A professional team with bachelor's degrees would never let credentialed journalists spend their time on reading user manuals. I hope this boost will be a small step towards being able to afford someone like me. Yeah, well, thank you for that. And, according to your profile picture, I don't think you're the type of producer we're looking, because we're not just looking for competence. We're looking for an attractive woman.
Yeah, it's a non-starter, but I really appreciate the willingness to contribute.
Yeah. Thanks for, I agree. Like, we'll get to a point where we're able to afford at least like 6 producers so that we can compete with what Bitcoin did. And, your boost definitely helps us get to there. Maybe the next booster is a good candidate for being a producer for us. What do you think, Rob?
Well, yeah. Miss Hanwala, 420, that's 10,000 sats. And she said it's easier not to be a podcast pirate when the hosts are so damn sexy. Especially Rod. Is he single? I'm ready to mingle with Rod, if you know what I mean. I appreciate the nice boost. I've already been in touch with Miss Hanwala in the DMs. She might be coming down to Austin. We might be going on our first date to get some beef at the barbecue pit. I'm speechless. I'm a little nervous on it, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I think Miss Hanwala does a great job here of showing you, Saber Rudd, how to shoot your shot as far as like trying to be a producer of the show and get paid to do it. Because, dude, man, she really went for it. Wow, so you guys are going on a date?
Yeah, I'm blushing right now. It's not official. She hasn't replied to my DM, but I asked her on the date in the DMs.
Where are you thinking about taking her?
There's a few barbecue spots in Austin. I thought about taking her to Franklin.
That'd be a good first date. Well,
she doesn't if she orders anything but beef though, it's over.
Yeah, man, these women that eat plants, it's I guess based on the amount of tobacco that I consume, I guess that makes me an herbivore, but I don't typically eat plants.
Ted, if you burn them completely, well done first.
All right, well, thank you, Miss Huddlenut 420. Our next booster is Fundamentals from the Rock Paper Bitcoin podcast, who says, getting the word out that we can cure bids, and then he explains what bids means. Bitcoin influencer derangement syndrome, aka Bitcoin AIDS, is the most thermodynamically sound value of credentialed journalists can provide. Yeah, I agree. Journalists are great at informing the public accurate information about health products like vaccines, and we did an absolute incredible job of informing our listeners about that. Recently when we were talking about vaccinating people with Bitcoin derangement syndrome.
Yeah, truth to us. The next one we've got from our friends Orange Mart, the sponsors of this show, this particular episode, and they posted a link to the clip of the song from last week's episode, Sound the Call. Rod will catch it all. And thank you for the boost, Orange Mart. That song's been playing in my head all week. It's a really great song.
Yeah, I did this with the dollar menu stuff, but I need to take our intros and make it as a Wave Lake album for people to go and hang out and listen to. I think they'd be pretty popular. Like, I know one person was asking if they could use, they're actually a DJ in the space that, DJ for Bitcoin events from time to time, but then they also DJ at like weddings and stuff like that. And they asked to use our theme from last week in a high school prom that they're going to be DJing in Pennsylvania.
will be huge.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Orange Mart. Next one is from Cantillionaire for 5,000 sats that said, boosting to remain compliant, I would never steal. Well, thank you for setting an example. Unfortunately, a lot of people do steal from journalists, and we're hoping that will stop here in the near future. But it looks like people are taking our suggestions of non-compliance the wrong way, unfortunately, here.
Yeah, unfortunately. The next one we all eat 2121, so 2,121 sats. Comply pride, non-compliant Bitcoiners follow the rules. There's no punctuation in that one, so I'm not exactly sure what the interpretation of that is, but I agree or I disagree depending on what you meant.
Yeah, we all eat's a funny guy. Big supporter of the show. Thank you for the boost. Can't really interpret what you're saying either. Though I do understand, like I do a lot of my writing when I'm under the influence of alcohol. And so when I get too influenced and alcohol starts doing the writing for me, my punctuation kind of gets bad. So maybe We All Eat was having a good time, or maybe We All Eat was just feeling lazy and didn't want to spell check. But either way, thank you for the boost. The next one is from Rev Hoddle, who says, thank you for bringing the ethics back into journalism and showcasing the facts. Credentialed integrity is the clear path forward. Well, appreciate it, Rev Hoddle. We're doing our best to kind of rehabilitate an industry that unfortunately, doesn't really seem to be following ethics and standards, and they seem to be joining the CIA and their non-compliance and supporting these non-compliant government agencies.
Yeah, I saw a great quote, said, be the credentialed journalist you wish to see in the world, and I took it literally.
Yeah. I mean, did you have any slogans like that in your post, pinned in your online classroom when you were going to the University of Phoenix?
I had a signature. It was in my bio that we used in the song. It was credentials matter. Enough said. So I was trying to get those credentials. Yeah. The last one, last but not least, 1,000 sats from Enoch. Enoch wrote another beautiful poem. It says, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy. No sorrow in sight. Where's the bugle? I saw the light. Wow, that's beautiful. And it really is, it's humbling when people write such nice boosts like this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have some people joining the Bugle music team, helping us write poems and lyrics and stuff like that. Music we've been doing,
especially if they're a hot chick.
Yeah, if you're a hot chick and you want to work for Bugle in some way, hit me up. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps up the show. Do you have any closing thoughts, Rod?
No, I think it's just everybody needs to kind of reevaluate how we're going to move forward in June. We're going to show compliance pride, but you got to know that while Bitcoin has already won the war to make sure everybody understands this, it's just beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's time to lay down your arms if you're a memer. We've won. You can slow down your meme warfare and just cruise from here. I mean, if all your image editing tools, if you got Photoshop on your computer, might as well uninstall it. Just get rid of your whole Adobe suite. If you're using open source options to create memes like Blender on the video side, or what's that one that people use all the time on the picture side, the open source one? It's got a weird name.
Pixelor? Pixelor?
No, it's like a downloadable program. GIMP. It's called GIMP.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're using an open source meme platform like GIMP, maybe it's time to uninstall it from your computer. I mean, you could probably use the space to, download some good quality, movies to relax on. It's like, we're not at war anymore. It's time to go home. It's time to, smell the roses and
Yes.
celebrate. All right, well, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Bugle Weekly, and we'll see you next week.
You have just finished listening to this week's edition of the Bugle Weekly, the most thermodynamically sound podcast in news. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the show. Bitcoin has won and trying to transition into peacetime from having a mindset of wartime Bitcoin is difficult. Many people won't stop fighting even though the war is already won. But we are here to tell you, you can lay down your arms and smell the roses. This is hyper-Bitcoinization. History is written by the victors, and by supporting the show, you are helping to support the victors. Write history. Thank you for letting the credentialed journalists do the thinking for you. We hope to see you again on next week's edition of the Bugle Weekly.
In a bustling newsroom, smoking Marlboro Reds, two men work the beat, just as brave as can be. Rod Palmer has a heart of gold, pen sharp as a knife. Dick Greaser investigating pot and bringing shadows to light. Every week on the Bugle, their voices ring so true. They're the heartbeat of the nation, bringing the news to you. Rod and Dick keep on rolling through the thick and the thin, with a fire that keeps burning, that won't let the darkness win. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bringing light to the darkness, making wrong things right. They chase down a story, no matter how far, from the dusty back roads to the smoky bar. Rod has the facts, Dick has the flair. Together they are a force, a fearless pair. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bringing light to the darkness, making wrong things right. When the world needed heroes, they stepped up to the line. In the name of justice, they never did resign. With courage in their hearts and the truth on their side, Rod and Dick are the voices that couldn't be denied. From the courthouse steps to the county fair, they break a big story, and they'll always be there. With a tip of a hat and a nod of respect, Rod Palmer and Dick Greaser, they never neglect. On the Bugle Weekly, they expose all the lies, digging deep for the truth under those chemtrail skies. With the notebooks and the microphones, they fight the good fight, bringing light to the darkness, making wrong things right. Now the world remembers those two brave souls who bring justice and truth through their mighty roles. Rod and Dick at the Bugle, their legacy built, in every story told, in every right from wrong. Every week on the Bugle, their voices ring so true. They're the heartbeat of the nation, bringing the news to you.